Kevin, that point that Ray was making there about, Tottenham fans looking at Tottenham players and kind of doubting whether or not they're giving 100% effort, like that's damning in its own right.
I don't think, how bad things are going or how good. You're never not giving 100% effort. You mightn't be playing as well. Your confidence might be low. Their confidence is probably low. They'd had a fantastic season last season, massively overachieved, getting the Champions League final. Big blow to them, losing the Champions League final, and you think they have to go again. We're all playing for the national teams. It's a lot of workload on those players. They work really hard. They play really hard. Tottenham, the way they play, the way they close down, their energy. They haven't really had a chance, I think, to get their breath back from that. And then the season starts and they're not going well. Confidence dips. Players we talked about going out of contract. Manager rumours of him leaving. So it all there's no one reason. It all adds up. But it's definitely not from... I've never seen a player ever go out and not give 100%. That's just a myth or a lie or things people say. It's not true. It's down to lack of confidence or, whatever's in them that isn't, fully functioning, whether it's an injury, whatever. But it's never because of lack of effort.
I couldn't disagree more, Kevin.
Really?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. Well, Eriksen, I don't think is trying the leg for them this season. I think he's...
He mightn't be playing well, or mightn't be. It mightn't look like he's trying,
Kevin.
but he's definitely
not trying. He's not trying. And I saw at Arsenal, in the couple of years that Arsenal went through the situation where Sanchez and Ozil's contract was running out. They didn't try a leg either, and it happens. Thierry Henry in his last year at Arsenal never bothered, and it creates problems amongst the other players. And I think that absolutely Alderweireld, Vertonghen and Eriksen are not as committed as they have been in the past. And this is all to do with the fact that they haven't got moves when they expected to go. Alderweireld, Manchester United had wanted him when we're going back to when Mourinho was in manager, and Levy stuck by his guns and said, no, you're not going anywhere, when he could have earned maybe twice, 3 times of what he was at Spurs. All this thing festers. And that's what's happening now.
Does it spread?
Alderweireld's not playing tonight. Now, I don't know whether he's injured. He's not playing tonight. Eriksen's on the bench. So the manager knows that he's not getting 100% from them. That's in my opinion. Kevin has his.
Now, I've never been in the situation where I know that at the end of the contract I'm leaving. So I'm not speaking from personal experience. But I've certainly played with lads who have been absolutely professional to the last day, but other lads...
Yeah, as you said, it depends on the individual, doesn't it? It depends on the player.
And it's understandable.
The character of the person.
Yeah, people to listen to this, and it's understandable to someone... I'm not saying it's understandable they would give less, but it's understandable that your performance will be impacted if you're at loggerheads with the chairman, if you're falling out every day with the club based on the contract discussions, if your manager is trying to pile on the pressure, or... there's dispute every day over your long-term future, and you're unsettled domestically and all that kind of stuff, because we keep hearing players come out and say how happy they are at clubs because they're settled, they have a long-term contract. So the absence of those things matters as well. And a lot of these players are in that exact situation. They don't know where they're going to be next year. They probably hope it's not Tottenham. We don't know if the club are going to make a last-ditch big effort to keep them, or how spoiled the relationship is, or if there's too much water under the bridge now and they're going anyway.
It's going to be difficult for the players, though, if they know, and that group know, that he wanted them out of the club, the manager or the coach, in the summer, and wanted new players in.
Exactly.
So
how many times have we heard players go, I love playing for this manager, because you know he believes in me.
Who wanted who out, Dara? Sorry, I don't know what you mean.
Well, it was speculated over the summer, and, that Pochettino wanted a clear out. He wanted new players brought in. The players whose contracts were running down were to be let go.
By all accounts, they didn't sell
and Man United and all that other stuff.
Well, he didn't want to go to Man United. He wanted to go to Real Madrid. And apparently the bid was there, but it wasn't enough for Levy, and Real Madrid have left it alone. And now you've got a disgruntled player who's not even in the team, and he's one of their best players. Alderweireld is not involved. You saw Alderweireld playing against Bayern Munich. You saw Vertonghen playing against... I'm absolutely 100% sure that this is why the club's in crisis.
The players, the difference now is, years ago, and even go back to Modric and Bale, we always praise Levy for getting the best deal that he could get. But back then he held all the cards, because those players had 3 and 4 years left on their contract at the time when they were sold. These players now have resisted. If you look at their club policy, like Winks, Dyer, Eriksen, or Kane, Ali, they've all signed several long-term deals over the last few years. They seem to get you on a 4-year deal within 12 or 18 months to give you another 4-year deal, just to make sure that your long-term future is set at the club, so that the club are in a position of strength. Alderweireld said no. He's still on the same contract he is on when he joined the club. Eriksen is in the same position. Rose is ready to leave. So the club are no longer the ones calling the shots. The players can sit there and go, unless you give me the offer I want, I'm leaving and you're getting nothing. And you can't do anything in the meantime unless you give me a situation or an offer that suits me. So the players are holding all the cards.
Kevin, like I've heard people talk about, and again, Liam makes reference to a whole host of Tottenham players who could earn double, treble, multiples of their salaries at other clubs. And Tottenham are put forward as a club by some people who pay players. Realistic isn't even the word I'm looking for. But you know, it's not lottery money.
Good business module has Daniel Levy, and he's run it for 5 years. All the time that Pochettino's been here, been there, he's run it well, and there's been certainty about the team, but not in the last 18 months. There hasn't, Dara. And I'll go back to Arsenal. I saw it with Sanchez and with Ozil. It creates problems. It really does.
Back to the Eriksen point, I don't think he'd intentionally go onto the pitch and not give 100%. Subconsciously, as a consequence of all this stuff, contract negotiations, not getting where he wants, maybe training isn't going as well, he's falling out with the manager, so he mightn't be performing as well on the pitch, but won't be consciously going out, I'm not going to give 100%, I'm going to not try, because it's costing him. It'll cost him. Real Madrid won't want to sign him at the end of the season because of poor performances. So it's in his best interest to go out and play well, but all that's going on around him may, as I said, subconsciously be affecting his
You were asking there if it festers. You can imagine if some of the players, if they keep all their contract discussions or their personal discussions with their agents away from the team bus and away from the dressing room or the training ground, it might not impact. But if one of those lads are coming in, or 2 or 3 of them, updating the dressing room, because they'll be close mates with a lot of them, that's what you do, you tell your mates about what's going on in your life. If they're coming in talking about, you know, talking into Milan or whoever it is, or PSG, or it might be Madrid, instead of next week's game at Anfield, of course that's going to impact it. Of course that's going to impact their focus or their commitment to the game. So Pochettino has a difficult job because there's a set of circumstances there which may not have been his creating, but they're beyond his solution at the moment.
Well, he said yesterday he's no grey hair. He doesn't worry about these things. He doesn't listen to stuff from outside. He was very relaxed at his press conference yesterday. Let's look at some of these players who are out of contract at the end of the season and are still okay. Eriksen's not in it tonight, but Alderweireld, you know, they're in and around the squad, and the roles that they've played so far diminished tonight, I know.
So we're all chatting here about the players, and we're all speculating on whether their commitment or their focus is impacted by their contractual situation or their talks with the club or their relationship with the manager. But what we can say is that these players currently and for a while now have not played at the level that we're used to seeing them play. It can be a variety of reasons. Maybe they're still licking their wounds from the Champions League final. It could be all sorts of reasons we don't know about. But the 2 centre halves here, they're both in a position of strength. Their deals are up. And the club are now going to face a scenario for where, unless something changes, both of them will leave. Danny Rose for quite a while. Remember an interview he gave last year, a year ago, where he was heavily fined for speaking out against the club's wage structure and how his morale was impacted and how the dressing room was impacted by the club's approach to finances and wages and contract situations. So he thought he was gone at the start of the season. As I said earlier, he wasn't brought on the pre-season trip. He's now back in the team. So it's not ideal from a manager situation or a club that has serious ambitions to get out of a Champions League group or do well domestically to have players in there who played no meaningful part in pre-season because they thought they were away, and who probably had it verbally said to them directly by the manager, you're not in my plans. Now some players can just dust that off and it makes no impact. Others hang on to it and it affects their performance, it affects their morale, it affects their standing in the dressing room.
Very few clubs, in defence of Tottenham, there's very few clubs that can dictate the players, or the players will absolutely want to stay 100%. If you're Real Madrid, or if you're Barcelona, or if you're Bayern Munich in Germany, perhaps that's the case. Once upon a time, it was Manchester United. Now it's Manchester City. The players don't want to leave. But if you're Arsenal, and if you're Spurs, and if you're Chelsea for that matter, and big clubs come calling, and through their agents, the players get to know that these clubs want them, this creates this problem. And to be fair to Daniel Levy, he's kept it going for a long time, but I think the chickens have come home to roost.
There's the stadium as well, which I think cost them twice what it was meant to.
Well, they didn't spend any money last year, and Pochettino did well the first half of the season, and then they fell away in the league. The second half, they scraped qualification for the Champions League. But it is a drain. Again, Arsenal built a stadium 12 years ago. They couldn't spend in the transfer market. They couldn't maybe give the players the wages that they could get elsewhere. So all these things have an effect, Darren. But having said that, they're up against a team tonight that they should get the show back on the road. And
we're wondering whether Pochettino is the man that can bring things round in the dressing room. I'd say a lot of those players have heard him say privately what we've heard him say publicly, which is he's seemed to give an indication that he doesn't see his long-term future at the club or even his short-term future at the club. So you can see why it's a situation you could talk about for a long time. There's no obvious solution because a lot of the key players involved, we're unsure what their motivation is or what their situation is. But what we do know is the results have been terrible. And in most big clubs, a series of results like this Tottenham side have had, you'd all agree that the manager is bang under pressure. But because of his contract situation, he's probably wanted elsewhere. The chairman is probably reluctant to make a first move there. It's probably going to try and make the most out of that deal as well.
Yeah, their form in 2019 has been touched on a couple of times already. They've lost 17 out of 41 games.